everyone! I hope y'all are having a great day, and today I'll be reviewing The Hammer of Thor by Rick Riordan, the second book in Rick Riordan's Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series. I think this is supposed to be a trilogy, and so because this is the second book, that means there's only one book left in the series. And if my guesses are correct, based on the last line of this book, I'm sure that everyone is dying for the third book in this series, The Ship of the Dead. If you don't know what this series is about, it's Rick Riordan's spin on Norse mythology. We have our main character, Magnus Chase, who is a homeless teenage boy until he discovers that he is actually a son of a Norse god. In classic Riordan fashion, there are ditzy, proud gods and capable teenage heroes and monsters who are probably a little more silly than they are scary. All in all, The Hammer of Thor delivers exactly what Riordan promises, which is a fun, entertaining read with a lot of humor, action, and heart. But maybe that, the fact that Riordan delivers exactly what he promises, is the reason that I didn't enjoy this book as much as I wanted to. I mentioned in my sort of summer review, which I'll link down below, that to be properly critical, I had to admit that Riordan's books are formulaic. But admitting that didn't stop me from loving The Sword of Summer. I really thoroughly enjoyed that book. I mentioned it in my favorite books of 2015 video. So I really don't know what happened with The Hammer of Thor for me. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't like it, because I did. I enjoyed reading it. But I was a little underwhelmed. I was a little disappointed. I didn't fall in love with it like I've fallen in love with Riordan's books before. It's like when I was reading The Hammer of Thor, I finally felt it. That cynicism that a lot of Riordan's critics have, the feeling that what we're reading isn't fresh anymore. I don't know what made the difference between The Sword of Summer and The Hammer of Thor for me. Maybe it wasn't a difference in Riordan's writing at all. Maybe it was just a difference within myself, like a change in my reading taste. But while reading The Hammer of Thor, I could feel it. I could feel the beginning of that disillusionment and that realization that I was beginning to feel a little tired by the overfamiliarity of the story. Like I said before, that doesn't mean I hated this book. That was a heavy note to start on, so I feel like I gave off the impression that I didn't enjoy this book. I liked it. It was fine, but it was just fine. I was disappointed because I didn't love it like I wanted to. Now, I am a huge Rick Riordan fan. Like, I love Rick Riordan. I've loved him since the 4th grade. That's when I started reading the Percy Jackson series. That's when I first heard of The Lightning Thief. 4th grade. I've loved him since 4th grade. That is such a long time. I just finished my first year of college. So what? That's like 9, maybe 10 years? That kind of devotion doesn't fade easily. So you can still be critical and enjoy what you're criticizing. Like I said, I love Rick Riordan. Of course I will continue to read his books. I just feel like I'm no longer the wholehearted fangirl that I once was, which is a sad realization. But like I said, I have been reading him since the 4th grade, so I guess this is coming in due time. But then again, maybe the next Riordan book will just put me back in my obsessive mode, and this will have just been like a little dip. Because I finished The Hammer of Thor maybe like a week ago, and now I'm in the middle of The Dark Prophecy, which is the second book in the Trials of Apollo series, and I am really enjoying The Dark Prophecy. Like, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I enjoyed The Hammer of Thor, so I guess we'll see. One thing I am so excited to talk about, though, is that Rick Riordan is so progressive. He increases the diversity of his characters in every new release, I feel. The Sword of Summer already had a decent number of diverse characters, including Samira, who's Muslim, and Hearthstone, who's deaf, and Blitzen, who's presumably black. At the very least, he's described as dark-skinned. That's already like more than what we usually get in like middle grade and YA fiction. But no, that's not enough. In this installment, we get a new character who is transgender and gender fluid. And I feel like this new character is like a lot of readers' like precious child now. Rick Riordan shows such a deliberate effort to increase the diversity of his characters, and I appreciate that so much. And something that I love about him is that he never tries to defend anything that someone finds problematic. Instead, I genuinely feel like he takes that criticism into consideration, and then he tries to improve himself in his future projects. And I love that about him. I love that so much. But anyway, I'm now going to go into a spoiler section for The Hammer of Thor. So if you haven't read The Hammer of Thor and you don't want to be spoiled, I would advise leaving in 3, 2, 1. Bye. Alrighty, The Hammer of Thor. Where to start? I remember reading the Kirkus review for The Sword of Summer, and the reviewer mentioned that Samira is Muslim, but she doesn't seem like a very devout Muslim because she never spends any time praying in the book. In this book, however, we do see Samira take the time out of the day to pray, and I don't know if Rick Riordan included that as a response to that review or to that sentiment that I'm sure other readers have echoed as well, or if it just like came naturally. But this is kind of what I mean when I say that I feel like Rick is always trying to improve. Instead of giving an excuse, he gives us his corrections. And that kind of thoughtfulness, that kind of dedication to giving his readers good representation, I love that so much I can't even put it into words. I felt that similar love, I felt that similar happiness when we met Alex Fierro, the son/daughter of Loki. And Alex is gender fluid and transgender. And admittedly, I do feel like Rick can come off a little preachy when he talks about topics like inclusivity and political correctness. And personally, because I live for all that kind of stuff, he's preaching to the choir for me, so I don't mind. But for someone who's not as progressive, or someone who doesn't align politically with that kind of message, I do feel like readers like that will feel like they're being preached at. I do think that that would grate on their nerves and that they would have like a difficult time swallowing what Rick is saying. Me, however, I'm like, Rick, you keep doing you. For most of the novel, Alex is female, so if I do refer to Alex using gender pronouns, they will be female gender pronouns, such as she, her, hers. But just know that I'm not trying to erase any part of Alex's identity. So Alex's gender identity does account for a lot of her screen time and a lot of her characterization, but I do think that Rick includes a decent number of other characteristics too. She's very moody, she's very stoic, very guarded. She's also sarcastic and she's strong. So she's not consumed by her gender identity, but that's definitely a very big part of her character. I have a feeling that Alex Fierro is probably a lot of people's favorite character of the series now. I think Alex is definitely Magnus's love interest, and this is interesting for two reasons to me. The first is that it indicates that Magnus is probably pansexual or something similar, and second, it puts Alex Fierro, this gender fluid and transgender character, in such a light where it makes her deserving of Magnus's romantic interest. And I really like that. I think that romantic attention is really valuable, especially coming from someone as caring and as pure and thoughtful as Magnus, because then we feel reassured that that romance and that attention isn't tainted or fetishized at all. As for the plot, although Riordan does frequently use his very familiar overarching formula for the plot of the books, he still seems to have enough creativity to keep the individual plot points fresh, like stealing gold and going bowling and crashing a wedding. He does keep his plot entertaining. I loved visiting Alfheim. I was surprised by and loved the undercurrent of police brutality that we saw there. It was interesting seeing Hearthstone's dad and learning more about Hearthstone's backstory. I wish Hearth had retrieved his inheritance rune while he was there, because I feel like the fact that he doesn't have it is going to cause stress in the next book, but I guess we'll get there when we get there. The makeover scene with Sif before the wedding reminded me a little bit of the Sea of Monsters when Annabeth and Percy get makeovers at Cece's Spawn Resort. Well, Annabeth gets a makeover, Percy gets turned into a guinea pig. But it was almost like a mirrored version of the same event, because Annabeth comes out looking all gorgeous and Percy is stunned, but he's a guinea pig. And in this case, Alex comes out looking all gorgeous and Magnus is stunned and he's not a guinea pig. That was cute. The plot was interesting, but I do feel like the book felt a little long. Anytime a book feels long to me, I always think that it could have used another round of editing or another round of revision. In Rick Riordan's case, I know that he churns out books so quickly, and I feel like that's detrimental to the quality of his novels. Because he writes and releases his books so quickly, I feel like each book doesn't get enough time in the editing and revision process that it needs. I think that the publisher easily relies on Rick Riordan's star power, and so they don't spend a lot of time or a lot of attention on in-depth editing and revision to make this book the best it can be, because they're like, oh well, everyone's gonna buy it anyway. They're like, oh, it's been a year, time for a new Riordan release. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. What was I saying? The book felt long. Okay, yeah, the book felt long. It did. Granted, a lot of things did happen in this book, and a lot of things happened in the first book, and so I'm sure a lot of things will happen in the next book. Let's talk about the next book for a little bit. So, we know that Percy's going to be involved. The inclusion of Percy in this non-peripheral role blatantly feels like fan service to me. I think I said something similar in my Trials of Apollo review, but I really don't feel like we need to see Percy that often. It's not that I don't love Percy. I love him so much. He's one of my favorite book boyfriends ever. And it's not like I'm not going to be excited to see him, because I'm always excited to see him. It's more that I want him to live a happy, quiet life and not get involved in everyone else's trouble. I feel like he deserves rest and like peace and quiet, and I hate the fact that he's always getting dragged into other people's drama. I also feel like Percy can almost be used as a kind of crutch to please fans instead of letting our new protagonists stand on their own. However, I do know that so many fans are just dying to see Percy again, so I understand. I get what you're doing, Rick. So I'm curious as to what you guys think is the ultimate end goal of this series. Like in the last book, are we gonna see Ragnarok, or is it just gonna be a postponement of Ragnarok for a very long time? I initially thought the series would end with the final climax being Ragnarok, but now I'm not so sure. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I also hope we get to see more of Sigyn in the next novel because her alliances are so questionable, and although she was barely there in this novel, she's still so full of mystery and intrigue. I wonder why she encouraged Magnus to give Randolph the sword, because Randolph did end up freeing Loki, and she seemed scared when Loki was cut free, like that wasn't what she wanted to happen. So let me know what you guys think of that too. Unrelated, but I thought Samira and Amir were really cute in this book. I think Amir is so sweet and I love how he's trying to be understanding. Also, would their couple name just be Samira? Because Amir is already in her name. Samir. Maybe it would just be Samir. But that's just like a shortened version of her name. I don't know. Okay, so I think that's all I have to say about the Hammer of Thor. I didn't retain that much after I read it, but I did enjoy reading it. It was fun, it was funny, it was cute, it didn't blow me away. I do think it feels a little tired, but maybe that's just me. I am excited for the next and probably final book, The Ship of the Dead. Let me know if you guys have any theories for the last book, or let me know what you thought of this one. Thanks so much for watching. I hope y'all have a fantastic day and happy reading. Bye!